Hey everybody, and welcome back to another deep dive with us. So today we're going to be looking at something pretty interesting.
Yeah, this should be fun.
Yeah. Basically, we're going to be going over the top 21 most frequently used words in the English language.
Yeah, and it's really amazing how such a small set of words can make up like the foundation for like daily conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. And, whether you're a beginner or, you consider yourself more advanced, understanding these words and how to use them effectively, is really going to help you sound more fluent, more natural. So joining me today to, help us unpack all of this and really give us some good insights is...
Hi, everyone.
So I'm really excited to jump into this with you. So I guess to start off, our source has broken down these 21 words into different categories.
Right.
So we've got verbs and we've got conversational words and we've got nouns and adjectives. So I figure, why don't we just go in order? Verbs, those are like the action words, right? The workhorses of the sentence. So let's start there.
Yeah, definitely.
All right. So the first one on the list is go. And, I think most people, when they think about go, they're thinking, it's about like physical movement.
Right. Like I go to the store.
Right. Exactly.
But, it can also indicate like a change of state. Like the lights went out or even like a progression of time, like as the years go by.
That's so true. I never really thought about like all the different ways that we use that one little word, go. All right. What about get? That one seems even more, multifaceted.
Yeah, get is a very interesting one, because it often implies a process or a change of state that's sort of outside of your direct control.
Oh, okay.
So you think about phrases like get sick or get lost. It's like something is happening to you. It's not like you're directly making it happen.
Right. It's like something's being done to you.
Exactly.
But then on the other hand, you have phrases like get rich or get ahead.
Right.
And those have a very different connotation.
Yeah.
Right. It's much more like intentional, almost aspirational.
Yeah, it's like get reflects our relationship with change itself, whether it's something we're actively pursuing or something that's kind of being imposed upon us.
That's so interesting. I like that a lot. Okay, so moving right along. Next up, we have do. And this one always feels to me like the ultimate multitasker.
Definitely.
You can do so many things.
Absolutely. It's amazing how often do just pops up in our sentences. From describing our jobs, like, what do you do?
Right.
To expressing obligations, I have to do my homework. It really is like the Swiss Army knife of verbs.
Yeah, and it plays such a key role in questions too. Do you like pizza? Did you see that movie? Like it's just, it makes the question a question.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we've had go, we've had get, we've had do. What about have?
Oh, have. That's another one that's surprisingly versatile.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously we use it for possession. I have a car.
Right.
But we also use it for experiences. I had a great time. And then, all those idioms too. Have a nice day. Have a good one. These are just ingrained into our everyday conversations.
Yeah, and I think have really highlights how so much of language is really about more than just, the literal meaning. It's about, creating a feeling or, connecting with someone on a social level.
Exactly.
Okay, so let's tackle make. I feel like this is one I use constantly. Make dinner, make a decision, make a mistake. It's all about like creating something or causing something to happen.
Yes.
But then there's also this element of obligation sometimes, right?
Yeah.
Like I made him apologize.
Exactly. Make implies that you're kind of bringing something into being. You're causing something to happen. And you're right about the obligation aspect too. It can be used to express, influence or even a sense of like responsibility for something.
Well, like you're the driving force behind whatever is happening.
Exactly.
Okay. And last but not least on our list of verbs, we have take.
Take. Now, this is an interesting one because take often involves a sense of action combined with possession or control. So, think about phrases like take a break, take a seat, take charge.
Right. It's like you're asserting yourself in some way, whether you're taking something for yourself or taking control of a situation.
Exactly.
So, okay, we've got go get, do, have, make, and take. That is a lot of verbal power packed into 6 little words.
It really is. It's amazing how much we can express with just the small set of verbs.
Okay, so we've covered the verbs. Now let's move on to those little words that I like to think of as kind of like the glue that holds our conversations together. Those little conversational connectors?
Right.
So things like hi and bye and thanks and sorry. I mean, how deep can we really go with these?
You might be surprised. Even these seemingly simple expressions play a really vital role in how we interact with each other.
Okay.
For example, hi and hello, they're not just greetings. They signal that you're open to communication and connection.
Oh, so it's like setting the tone right from the start, like you're extending an invitation
Yeah.
to engage in a conversation.
Exactly.
Okay, and then on the flip side, we have bye.
Right, which signals, closure. It marks the end of the conversation, and, it allows us to transition smoothly out of the interaction.
Okay, that makes sense. So we've covered greeting and departing. But what about those little words that add a touch of, politeness and gratitude to our interactions?
You mean thanks and sorry?
Exactly.
Ah, yes. Those are powerful tools. They help us maintain social harmony, and they help us, navigate those little bumps in the road of human interaction.
Yeah. Thanks acknowledges a favor, right, or a kind gesture, and it, reinforces those positive interactions that we have. And sorry is all about taking responsibility for something, smoothing over those mistakes and showing empathy.
Exactly. They're subtle, but they're really essential for building good relationships.
Yeah, I think it's interesting how we often, modify these words for emphasis, like saying thanks a lot. It carries a lot more weight than a simple thanks.
Oh, definitely.
Or I'm so sorry versus just sorry. It adds that extra layer of sincerity.
Exactly. These little nuances can make a big difference.
Absolutely. Okay, so we've explored 6 key verbs and 4 of these essential conversational words.
We have.
Are you starting to see the power of these seemingly simple words?
Oh, absolutely.
It's like we're peeling back the layers and discovering all this hidden depth to language.
I agree.
All right, so I think we're ready to tackle our next category, which is nouns. So where do we even begin with this?
Well, our source has chosen a handful of nouns that represent fundamental concepts, the building blocks of how we understand the world.
Okay.
So let's start with time.
Okay, time.
Such a basic concept, yet it governs so much of our lives.
Right. We're constantly thinking of time. What time is it? Do we have enough time? It's like this invisible force shaping our days.
Right. And the source actually delves into some pretty deep questions about time.
Oh, really?
Like, how do different cultures perceive time? What's the relationship between time and memory? It's fascinating stuff.
Okay, now I'm intrigued. All right, so alongside time, we have day, which seems, very ordinary. But, it really does mark the rhythm of our lives. Have a good day. It's a brand new day.
Right. And day can also refer to a specific period in history, like back in the day or the day the music died. It connects us to this flow of time, both personal and historical.
Wow, I like that. Okay, what's next?
Next up is thing, which I have to admit always makes me chuckle a little bit.
Why is that?
Well, it's like the ultimate catch-all word, for when our vocabulary fails us.
Oh, yeah. It's like the ultimate placeholder. What's that thing over there? The thing is. But, it's actually really effective at conveying meaning, even when we can't come up with, a more specific word.
Right. It shows that communication isn't always about, perfect grammar or an extensive vocabulary. It's about getting your message across. And sometimes thing does the job perfectly.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so speaking of conveying meaning, we've got place next on our list. It seems like a pretty straightforward word, but I'm sure there's more to it than meets the eye.
There is. Place isn't just about physical location. It can also refer to a position in a sequence, like take your place in line, or even a state of mind, like feeling out of place. It's a word that helps us navigate the world in all sorts of ways.
Right. It's like place isn't just about where we are physically, but also about how we fit in.
Exactly.
And how we make sense of our surroundings.
Exactly.
Okay. And then finally we have people, which, it's it seems so obvious, but, when you think about it, people are really what makes the world go round, right?
That's true.
People represents our shared humanity.
Right.
That's the foundation of society and relationships and, everything that makes us human.
It's the word that reminds us we're not alone.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so we've explored verbs, conversational connectors, and now nouns. I'm already feeling like I have a whole new appreciation for the power of these everyday words. But before we jump into adjectives, I'm curious, what's standing out to you so far?
Honestly, I think what struck me the most is how much depth and nuance there is, even in the simplest words. We use them all the time, but we don't often stop and think about how they work.
Yeah. It's like we're taking them for granted.
Totally.
But I think this deep dive is really helping us to, kind of slow down and appreciate the intricacies of these words that we usually just take for granted.
Exactly.
Yeah. All right. So adjectives, I think we're ready.
Let's do it. You know, it's funny how we can go through like our whole lives using these words and never really stop to think about them.
Right. It's true. But that's, I think, what makes this deep dive so interesting.
Yeah.
It's like we're forced to slow down and actually like appreciate these things that we usually just, take for granted.
Yeah.
So last we left off, we were about to delve into the world of adjectives. So are you ready to add some color to our conversation?
Absolutely. Adjectives are what bring our language to life.
Yeah, they do.
They paint pictures in our minds, they evoke emotions, and they help us make sense of the world.
I love that. So true. And they add, that extra layer of detail that just makes our communication so much richer. Okay, so why don't we start with good? I feel like that's like the most basic adjective in the English language.
It really is. Good is our go-to word for expressing approval or satisfaction or, just like the absence of anything negative.
Right.
It's a wonderfully versatile word.
It is.
You can use it for pretty much anything.
I've noticed that good is often used as kind of a conversational placeholder, especially when we're trying to be polite. Or avoid being too critical. Like, oh, that's a good point. Even if you don't really agree with what the person is saying.
Right. It's like a way of maintaining harmony.
Yeah.
Smoothing over those potential disagreements or awkward moments.
Right. Okay, so good is all about positivity and agreeableness. What about new? What kind of energy does new bring?
New is all about excitement, possibility, a sense of change. It draws our attention to something fresh, something that stands out from the ordinary.
Right.
Think about like getting a new phone or starting a new job.
Right.
There's that element of curiosity and intrigue.
There is. It makes you want to learn more to explore. And it can also be a really powerful marketing tool.
Right.
New and improved, the latest and greatest.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
It's like designed to pique our interest.
Absolutely. New really taps into that human desire for novelty and fascination with progress.
Yeah. But then on the other hand, new can also highlight a lack of experience.
That's true.
Like new to the job or a new driver.
Right.
It implies a learning curve.
Definitely.
So it's like a double-edged sword.
Right.
Right. It can be exhilarating,
right,
but it can also be intimidating.
Depending on the context.
Exactly. Okay, so we've covered good and new. Ready to wrap things up with happy.
Let's do it. Happy is such a fundamental human emotion.
It is.
It resonates across cultures. It's the language of joy and contentment and well-being.
Yeah, and it's amazing how contagious happiness can be. Like when someone greets you with a genuine smile and I say good morning, it can like brighten your whole day.
It's true. It's like this ripple effect.
Yeah.
Spreading positivity.
And happy isn't just about those fleeting moments of joy either.
Right.
It's about, that deeper sense of fulfillment.
Yeah, that sense of purpose.
Yeah. I think that's what makes happy such a powerful word. It encompasses such a, wide spectrum of positive emotions.
I agree.
Okay, so we've tackled adjectives, but I want to circle back to something you said earlier about how adjectives can paint pictures in our minds and evoke emotions. Do you think there's a connection between these simple adjectives and how we experience the world?
Oh, that's an interesting question. I think the answer is yes. The words we use shape how we see things. They provide the framework for how we understand and interpret our experiences.
So, for example, if we're constantly using negative adjectives to describe ourselves or the world around us, we might actually start to see things more negatively.
Exactly. The language we use becomes like a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Wow.
It influences our thoughts, our emotions, and ultimately our actions.
That's a powerful reminder to be mindful of the words we choose.
It is.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive. Verbs, conversational connectors, nouns, adjectives.
Yeah.
It's amazing how much we can learn from just 21 words.
It really is.
And we haven't even touched on phrasal verbs yet.
Oh, yes.
So those are next on our list. And I think you'll be surprised by how much they add to the richness and complexity of the language.
I think so too.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Bring on the phrasal verbs. All right, so welcome back to the deep dive. We've already covered so much.
Yeah.
But before the break, you mentioned phrasal verbs. What are those exactly and why are they so important?
So phrasal verbs are basically like these combinations of a verb and another word, usually like a preposition or an adverb. And when you put them together, they create a totally new meaning.
Okay, so give me an example.
Okay, so let's take the verb look. Pretty straightforward word, right? But when you start adding prepositions like up after or into, you get phrasal verbs with completely different meanings. So like look up means to search for information.
Right.
Look after means to take care of someone. And look into means to investigate something.
Wow, you're right.
So you see how just a little tweak can make our language so much more expressive.
Yeah, absolutely. So are phrasal verbs just about like adding more words to our vocabulary?
It's more than just adding words. It's about nuance. It's about idiom. Phrasal verbs capture these subtle shades of meaning that would be really hard to express otherwise.
Oh, yeah.
And they make your English sound much more natural, more like a native speaker.
So if they're so nuanced, how do we even begin to learn all of them?
Well, the good news is you don't have to learn every single phrasal verb out there.
Yeah.
Just focus on the most common ones, the ones that come up a lot in everyday conversations.
Okay, that makes sense.
And pay attention to the context, because phrasal verbs can have different meanings depending on the situation.
Right.
So try to learn them in real life examples, not just from lists.
So instead of just memorizing look up, I should try to remember it in a sentence. I need to look at the meaning of this word.
Exactly. Because then you're associating the phrasal verb with a specific meaning and a specific usage.
That's really helpful.
And most importantly, don't be afraid to experiment.
Okay.
The best way to learn phrasal verbs is to actually use them. Start incorporating them into your conversations, even if you're not 100% sure you're using them correctly.
So what if I make a mistake?
Making mistakes is part of the learning process. Even native speakers make mistakes with phrasal verbs all the time.
Okay, that makes me feel a little better.
So don't worry too much about it. Just practice and you'll get more comfortable over time.
So we've covered a lot of ground today. We talked about verbs, conversational connectors, nouns, adjectives, and now phrasal verbs. It's pretty amazing how much we can learn from just 21 words.
It really is. I think it just goes to show the power of language.
Yeah.
And how these simple building blocks can be used to express so many different things.
So what's the main takeaway you hope listeners will, walk away with from this deep dive?
I think the most important thing to remember is that fluency isn't about memorizing a huge vocabulary or mastering all the grammar rules. It's about understanding the basic principles of how language works, and then using those principles to communicate effectively.
So it's not about quantity, it's about quality.
Exactly. By focusing on these 21 words, you're not just learning vocabulary, you're gaining a deeper understanding of how English works.
I love that.
Yeah.
So is there anything you'd like to challenge our listeners to do after this deep dive?
I would challenge them to really pay attention to how these 21 words are being used all around them. Listen to conversations, read books and articles, and see if you can notice how these words are like the threads that hold everything together.
I like that. It's like a treasure hunt.
It is.
And the more you find, the better you'll become at understanding and speaking the language.
Exactly.
Well, this has been such an eye-opening deep dive for me. I feel like I've learned so much.
Me too.
And I definitely have a new appreciation for these words that we use every day. So thank you so much for joining me on this journey. And thanks to all of you for listening. We'll see you next time for another deep dive.
Hey everyone, and welcome back. We're diving deep into something exciting today.
And to words.
Words, that's right. 25 of them, actually.
That's right.
That can seriously boost your communication skills.
Yeah. Make you a much more powerful communicator.
Yeah. And our source this time is this video, and it's titled, "If You Know These 25 Words, Your English is Excellent."
Bold.
Yeah, it's a little bold, but you know what? I like it. Let's aim high.
Let's go for it.
So how does this video break down these 25 words?
Well, it starts by grouping them. And the first group is all about sharp thinking, whereas articulate, astute, and perceptive.
Okay, so articulate I use all the time. When someone's a good communicator.
Yeah.
Astute and perceptive, though. Are those just synonyms for articulate? What's going on there?
They're definitely in the same family, but there are some subtle differences. Articulate is really excelling at expressing yourself clearly, effectively, often in a verbal or written form. So you think of a skilled debater or writer who crafts beautiful prose.
Okay, I'm with you. So where do astute and perceptive fit into that?
So astute goes a bit deeper, I would say. It implies a sharpness of judgment. An ability to grasp complex situations and draw insightful conclusions. So it's not just communication, it's the thought process behind it.
So you could be articulate without being astute, but not the other way around.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You could have an astute person who's not the most eloquent speaker, but their insights would be incredibly valuable.
Interesting.
Yeah, in decision-making or problem-solving.
So perceptive. I always think of that as picking up on those subtle cues.
That's a great way to put it. A perceptive person is highly attuned to their surroundings and the people around them, noticing details others miss, and often they have a knack for understanding underlying motivations.
So it kind of goes hand in hand with astute, but more observation and intuition, less analysis.
Yeah. Precisely. And in many situations, being perceptive can be just as valuable as being astute. So think of a therapist who can pick up on a client's unspoken emotions, or a detective who notices tiny clues at a crime scene.
So we've got articulate for expressing yourself clearly, astute for insightful thinking, and perceptive for that keen observation. Seems like these words are pretty helpful in any field
Oh, yeah.
where communication and understanding are key.
Absolutely. Whether you're a lawyer crafting a persuasive argument, or a scientist interpreting data, or a teacher explaining a complex concept, these are qualities that can really help you excel.
This is already making me rethink how I describe people. I'm going
Yeah.
to be a lot more specific with my word choices going forward.
I love it. Yeah.
So speaking of precision, the source's next category focuses on effort and impact. Words like conscientious, diligent, fastidious, and meticulous, they all seem to relate to being detail-oriented. Am I on the right track?
Yes, you are. They all imply a certain level of care and attention to detail, but there are definitely shades of meaning that are worth exploring.
Okay, break it down for me. What are the key differences?
So let's start with conscientious and diligent. Both suggest a strong work ethic and a commitment to thoroughness. Someone who's conscientious is guided by a strong sense of duty and responsibility, takes their work seriously, and strives to do their best.
I can definitely relate to that. I like to think I'm a conscientious worker, but sometimes I struggle with procrastination.
Well, that's where diligent comes in. Diligence is all about consistent effort and perseverance. It's about sticking with a task even when it gets challenging or tedious.
So diligent is more action, conscientious, more attitude.
That's a good way to think about it. They often go hand in hand, of course.
What about fastidious and meticulous?
Yeah.
Just ramp up the detail-oriented factor.
It do, but in slightly different ways. Meticulous suggests a very precise and careful approach, often involving a lot of planning and organization. Think of a surgeon carefully mapping out every step of a complex procedure.
So meticulous equals systematic and thorough. Fastidious, though, the source gives the example of being fastidious about cleanliness.
Yeah.
It seems like it goes beyond just being tidy.
You're right. Fastidious suggests a level of attention to detail that borders on perfectionism. Often implies a strong dislike of anything messy, imperfect, or out of place.
So a fastidious person might be meticulous in their work, but they might also be very particular about their appearance, their home, even their hobbies. It's like an all-encompassing attention to detail.
Exactly. Now, the important thing to remember is that these words aren't inherently good or bad.
Oh, interesting.
Being meticulous can be a great asset in certain professions, but it can also lead to procrastination or analysis paralysis if taken to an extreme.
Right. It's all about finding that balance and understanding the context.
Right, and that's what makes this deep dive so interesting. It's not just about learning definitions, it's about understanding the nuances of language and how we can use these words effectively to express ourselves.
So to recap, we have conscientious for a strong sense of duty, diligent for consistent effort, meticulous for systematic thoroughness, and fastidious for a near-obsessive level of attention to detail. I'm realizing how much power lies in choosing the right word.
Absolutely.
And we're just getting started.
I know, right?
The next group of words is all about powerful communication. Words like eloquent, galvanize, and ineffable. Are you ready to dive in?
Oh, yeah. Let's do it. Let's explore how these words can help us become more persuasive and impactful communicators. All right, so let's unpack these powerful communication words. Eloquent, galvanize, and ineffable, each packing quite a punch.
I'm intrigued already. Eloquent always makes me think of like a speaker, you know, who can hold an audience spellbound, like they're weaving magic with their words.
Yes. Eloquent describes someone who can express themselves with such grace, clarity, and persuasion that they just captivate their listeners. It's not just about choosing like fancy words, it's about using language to create a powerful emotional connection.
So I see there's a difference there. Someone could use a lot of big words without actually being eloquent if their message isn't clear or engaging.
Exactly.
It's the whole package.
Yeah.
Words, delivery, passion.
Totally.
So how would you say galvanize differs from eloquent? They both seem to involve influencing people.
That's a good question. If eloquent is about captivating an audience, I think galvanize goes a step further and inspires them to take action.
Okay.
It's about sparking a fire,
Yeah.
motivating people to do something.
Yeah.
So think of a political leader who rallies their supporters to fight for a cause, or a coach who gives a pep talk that ignites their team's determination.
Okay.
Galvanize is about transforming words into action.
Powerful stuff. All right, ineffable. That one always throws me off a bit.
Yeah.
What's so powerful about a word that means beyond words?
That's the paradox, right? Ineffable points to the limits of language. Those experiences or emotions that are so profound, so overwhelming that words can't capture their full essence.
Like trying to describe the feeling of awe when you look up at a starry night sky.
Yes.
Or the overwhelming joy of holding your newborn child for the first time.
Exactly.
Words just don't seem big enough.
Words aren't big enough. And by acknowledging the limits of language, ineffable actually adds to the power of our communication. It creates a sense of mystery, of something too grand to be fully grasped.
Okay, so we've got eloquence for captivating, galvanizing for inspiring action, and ineffable for acknowledging the indescribable. What a range.
Yeah.
So the next two words on our list are fortuitous and serendipitous, both dealing with chance and good fortune.
Right.
I find myself using lucky all the time.
Yeah.
Do these words offer us a more nuanced way to describe those moments of good fortune?
They do, yeah. They both involve positive, unplanned events, but there's a subtle distinction. Fortuitous simply means happening by chance, especially in a way that's beneficial. So it could be a chance encounter that leads to a new job opportunity or winning a lottery you forgot you entered.
Just plain luck.
Yeah.
Where does serendipitous come in then?
Serendipitous adds a layer of pleasant surprise and unexpected discovery. It's not just that something good happened, but that you stumbled upon it without even looking for it. So think of finding a rare antique at a flea market or meeting your soulmate while on vacation.
Oh, like the universe is conspiring in your favor,
Right.
even though...
This is what makes serendipity so delightful and memorable.
This makes me think of when I was browsing in a used bookstore and I stumbled upon a first edition of my favorite author's book. I wasn't even looking for it.
Perfect example.
Felt like fate. So tenacious and resilient.
Right.
I see these words used a lot to describe successful people, those who don't give up easily.
Yes.
Can bounce back from setbacks. What are the key differences there?
So tenacious emphasizes persistence and determination. It's about holding firmly to your goals and refusing to give up, even in the face of obstacles. Think of an athlete who trains relentlessly to overcome an injury, or an entrepreneur who faces rejection after rejection, but never gives up on their dream.
That never say die spirit. Right? Inner drive that keeps people going when others might give up.
Exactly. Now, resilient is about the ability to bounce back from adversity.
Okay.
It's about adaptability and flexibility, being able to bend without breaking. Think of someone who loses their job, but quickly picks themselves up, learns new skills, and finds a new path.
So tenacious is pushing forward despite challenges, while resilient is adapting to change and bouncing back from setbacks.
Exactly. And both qualities are essential for navigating the ups and downs of life.
You know, I'm realizing that some of these words, like tenacious and resilient, aren't just descriptive, they're aspirational.
Yes.
They represent qualities that we can cultivate in ourselves.
That's a great observation. Learning these words isn't just about expanding our vocabulary, it's about expanding our understanding of human potential and striving to embody these qualities in our own lives.
All right, we've covered a lot of ground.
I know, right?
We still have a few more words to explore, though. What's next on our list?
Well, we've talked a lot about communication and personal qualities. Let's shift gears a bit and focus on words that describe different aspects of experience and knowledge.
Sounds good to me. So what kind of words are we looking at now?
Well, we've got prolific, which describes someone who produces a large amount of work, creates many things.
Ah, prolific. This makes me think of like authors who seem to publish a new book every year, or artists who create a constant stream of paintings and sculptures.
Yeah.
Like their creativity is a never-ending fountain.
Exactly. And being prolific often goes hand in hand with the qualities we discussed earlier, like diligence and meticulousness.
Right.
It takes a lot of effort and dedication to produce such a large volume of high-quality work.
That makes me think of Mozart, composed hundreds of musical masterpieces in his short lifetime.
Incredible.
It's mind-boggling how
Yeah.
some people can be so incredibly productive.
Yeah, it really is inspiring. And speaking of inspiration, another word on our list is exemplary, which describes someone who sets a great example or serves as a role model.
Okay, so this makes me think of teachers who go above and beyond to inspire their students.
Yeah.
Leaders who embody the values they preach.
Yes.
It's about actions speaking louder than words.
Precisely. An exemplary person not only sets a high standard for themselves, but also inspires others to strive for excellence.
Okay, I'm curious about succinct. I know it means being concise and to the point,
Yeah.
but why is that so important?
Well, in a world overflowing with information, being able to communicate clearly and efficiently is more valuable than ever.
Okay.
Succinct describes that ability to get your message across without unnecessary words or rambling explanations.
So many situations where that would be helpful.
Oh, yeah.
Writing emails, giving presentations,
Oh, yeah.
having everyday conversations. Even
Oh, yeah.
nobody wants to listen to someone just drone on and on.
No, they don't.
So being succinct shows respect for your audience's time and attention.
It does.
It's about making every word count.
Yeah.
I'm going to try to be more succinct
I think you should.
going forward. I think it will make a difference.
I think it will too.
All right, so the last word on our list is nostalgic, which describes a longing for the past, often associated with happy memories.
Nostalgia. I think we all experience that feeling from time to time, whether it's triggered by a song, a scent, or a photograph.
It's like taking a trip down memory lane.
Exactly. Nostalgia can be a powerful emotion. It connects us to our past and reminds us of the people, places, and experiences that have shaped who we are.
It's funny how even seemingly insignificant things can trigger a wave of nostalgia, like the smell of freshly baked cookies that reminds you of your grandmother's kitchen, or the sound of rain that takes you back to your childhood bedroom.
It's those little sensory details that can transport us back in time and evoke a flood of emotions.
Yeah.
Nostalgia can be bittersweet, of course, because it often reminds us of things that are gone, but it can also be a source of comfort and joy,
Yeah.
helping us to appreciate the richness of our lives.
Well said. This deep dive into the world of words has been fascinating. It's amazing how much nuance and power can be packed into a single word.
It is.
I feel like I've gained a whole new appreciation for the power of language. I'm definitely going to be paying much closer attention to the words I use and the words I hear from now on.
That's great. That's what we want.
Well, I want to thank you for taking us on this journey of linguistic discovery.
My pleasure.
I feel like I've learned so much.
I'm glad.
To our listeners, we hope this deep dive has inspired you to expand your own vocabulary and discover the power of words.
Remember, learning new words is an ongoing process.
It is.
So keep exploring, keep reading, keep listening, and most importantly, keep using those words in your everyday life.
Absolutely. And as a final thought-provoking question for our listeners, which word from today's deep dive resonated with you the most? And how will you try to incorporate it into your communication this week? We'd love to hear your thoughts. Until next time, happy wordsmithing.
Hey everyone, welcome back for another deep dive. And today we're talking all about maximizing impact in everyday conversations.
Yeah, using just your words.
Your words, that's right.
So we're going to be taking a deep dive into a guide today called 15 Great Things to Say in Everyday Conversations for Guaranteed Success.
Okay,
Oh.
guaranteed success, huh?
I know, right?
A little bit much.
That title, it's it's a lot.
Can we really transform our communication with just a few phrases?
Well, that's what we're going to be exploring today, right?
Yeah, is this a bunch of BS or is this actually something?
Well, the guide focuses on simple positive phrases to build stronger connections, make conversations more enjoyable and productive.
I can see how that makes sense.
Yeah.
But wouldn't that run the risk of sounding insincere?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Like we're just reading from a script.
Yeah, you don't want to sound robotic or anything.
Right.
But it's more about the intention behind the words.
Okay.
Like, think about it.
Yeah.
When someone asks you, how are you today? But you can tell they're not really listening. It feels impersonal, right?
Cold.
So it's all about being present in the moment.
Okay, so you're saying like...
Contact, listen attentively, be genuinely curious.
So it's not the words themselves. It's more about just being an active listener.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And the guide suggests phrases like, that's a great point, or could you tell me more about that?
So just acknowledging what someone is saying can go a long way.
Yeah, it shows you're not just waiting for your turn to speak, you're
Right.
actually engaged.
It makes them feel heard.
Yeah, and that can deepen the connection between people.
You know, that actually reminds me of a conversation I had recently with a friend who was telling me about their trip to Italy.
Oh, nice.
And they mentioned something that just sounded really interesting.
Okay.
And I just said, could you tell me more about that?
Yeah.
And it just opened up this whole conversation.
And what happened?
It was amazing. They just lit up and told me all these incredible details about food, the art, the people they met. It went from like a simple exchange to like this really memorable conversation.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And I really think that just that one question just like made all the difference.
Yeah. So a well-placed question can unlock a treasure trove of information.
That's a great way to put it, a treasure trove.
Yeah.
But I do want to play devil's advocate here for a second.
Okay, sure.
Couldn't these phrases also be used manipulatively?
Yeah,
But what if someone is just trying to sound more likable to get something they want?
Well, I think most people are pretty good at detecting when someone is being fake.
Okay, so authenticity is key here.
Right, exactly.
All right, so we've talked about active listening, asking engaging questions.
Yes.
But the guide also talks about validation and appreciation. Things like, I appreciate your help, or I trust your judgment.
Yeah, those are good ones.
Those convey a deeper level of respect, right?
Yeah, like you're acknowledging the other person's expertise.
Their autonomy. So again, it's not just saying the words, it's about understanding the deeper impact of those words.
Absolutely.
Like when you tell someone, I trust your judgment, it really empowers them.
Yeah. Have you ever been in a situation where someone said that to you?
Oh yeah, for sure.
What happened?
I remember when I was trying to choose between 2 job offers,
Oh, wow, yeah.
and one of my mentors said those exact words to me, and it really gave me the confidence to make a decision.
So simple words can have a profound impact.
Totally.
But do you ever find it awkward to use these phrases?
Oh yeah, all the time.
Yeah,
And that's where I think practice comes in.
absolutely.
It's not about becoming a robot.
No.
It's about incorporating these phrases into our natural communication style.
Right, and I think that's what makes this so fascinating. We're not just learning a set of magic words.
Right.
We're actually exploring human interaction.
Okay, so we've talked about active listening,
Yeah.
asking engaging questions, expressing validation and appreciation. Seems like we're building a foundation for better conversations.
They are.
Now, as we move forward, we're going to be getting into empathy and support. And I'm curious to hear if any of these ideas resonate with you so far.
Yeah, me too. Have you had any experiences where a simple phrase made a difference in a conversation?
You know, that's a great question, and I'm sure our listeners have some stories to share as well, but we'll have to save that for later. So we talked about active listening, asking insightful questions, and expressing validation. But I'm curious about offering empathy and support.
Yeah, for sure. And the guide highlights phrases like, I completely understand. That must have been difficult. And I'm proud of you.
You know, I can see how those phrases can be really helpful, but I'm also wary of saying, I completely understand.
Yeah.
When I don't fully grasp what someone is going through.
Yeah, I totally get it.
It almost feels presumptuous.
It's about acknowledging their feelings, even if you can't relate to their specific situation.
Okay, so it's more about validating their emotions than claiming to have walked in their shoes.
Exactly.
I think sometimes we're so afraid of saying the wrong thing that we end up saying nothing at all.
Yeah, and silence can sometimes be interpreted as indifference.
Right.
Even a simple phrase like, I'm here for you, can be incredibly powerful.
You know, that phrase reminds me of a time when I was going through a really tough breakup, and a friend of mine just sat with me and listened patiently.
Oh, wow.
And at one point she just said, I'm here for you.
And how did that make you feel?
You know, it was so simple, but it meant the world to me.
It's a reminder that you're not alone in your struggles.
Exactly.
You know, what's interesting is that empathy actually has a neurological basis.
Really?
Yeah.
So you're telling me that empathy isn't just a feeling?
No.
It's an actual phenomenon.
Yeah, our brains actually mirror the emotions that we see.
So when we see someone experiencing an emotion, our brains are kind of experiencing that same emotion.
On a neurological level. Yeah.
That's fascinating.
And that's why expressions of empathy can be so powerful in building trust.
So we're literally on the same wavelength.
Yeah, you could say that.
Now I'm wondering, can we train ourselves to become more empathetic?
You know, research suggests that we can.
Wow. So by using these phrases,
Uh-huh.
we're not just improving our communication, but actually rewiring our brains?
It's a win-win.
And now that I think about it, the title of this guide, Guaranteed Success, still feels strong, but I can see how using these phrases consistently can lead to more positive outcomes.
Well, the success isn't about getting what you want from every conversation.
Right.
It's about having healthier relationships and becoming a better communicator.
Well, the guide also talks about compliments and encouragement.
Oh, yeah.
Phrases like, you're really good at that, you handled that really well, you've made a lot of progress.
Those are great examples, but just like we talked about earlier, authenticity is key.
Mm-hmm.
You want to be genuine in your praise.
No backhanded compliments
No.
or forced compliments.
Yeah, and you also want to tailor the compliment to the person you're talking to.
That's a good point. Some people don't like to be praised publicly.
They might find it embarrassing. So it's all about reading the room.
I'm thinking about the phrase, you've made a lot of progress.
Uh-huh.
That one seems really effective when someone's working hard to improve.
It acknowledges their effort and encourages them to keep going.
Exactly like when you were first learning to play the piano.
Oh, yeah.
Wait, you play the piano?
I dabble. I'm certainly no concert pianist.
But you remember struggling with a difficult piece.
Yeah, and my teacher said to me, you've made a lot of progress.
Yeah.
It kept me motivated to keep practicing.
So it's those little moments that can make a big difference.
Right. Whether it's learning a new skill, navigating a personal challenge, or just getting through a tough day.
So communication isn't just about conveying information.
No.
It's also about building connections,
Yeah.
fostering trust,
Uh-huh.
and inspiring each other.
Exactly.
So the 15 phrases for guaranteed success might not guarantee success,
Uh-huh.
but it highlights how small changes in our communication can have a big impact.
Absolutely.
So we've talked about active listening, empathy, compliments.
We have.
But there's one last piece of the puzzle I want to discuss, and that's practice.
Yeah, practice is essential, just like any skill.
We're not going to magically become master conversationalists overnight.
No, it takes time and effort.
So it's about incorporating these phrases into our daily lives.
Yeah, what if you picked 1 or 2 phrases from the guide each week
I love that idea.
and just focus on using them?
It's like a little experiment.
It is.
And who knows, maybe by the end of this deep dive, our listeners will have their own set of phrases that they like to use.
That would be great because ultimately the goal is to use language in a way that feels authentic to you.
So what are some of the phrases that you personally find most effective?
Well, I'm a naturally curious person, so I often find myself using phrases like, well, like I was saying, I'm a naturally curious person.
Right.
So I often find myself using phrases like, tell me more about that, or that's really interesting, could you elaborate?
I like those.
It helps me stay engaged and learn more about the other person.
And it shows that you're genuinely interested in what they have to say.
Exactly.
So it's like we're not just talking at each other. We're actually have a dialogue.
We're building that connection.
I love it. And I think that's what makes communication so fascinating.
It's complex.
It's this dance between listening, speaking, understanding, and responding.
It's more than just words.
It's about creating a space where both people feel comfortable and respected.
So when we use phrases like the ones in this guide, we're setting the stage for more authentic and meaningful conversations.
Yeah, and I think that's a much better definition of guaranteed success.
It's not about manipulating people.
Right.
It's about fostering genuine connections.
And I think that's something we can all strive for.
Absolutely.
So as we wrap up this exploration of everyday phrases,
What are some key takeaways that our listeners can implement in their own lives?
well, I think one of the biggest takeaways is that we all have the power to make a positive impact through our words.
I agree with that.
It's not about being a perfect communicator.
Yeah.
It's about being mindful and present in our interactions.
And being willing to practice.
Exactly. And remember, this deep dive is just the beginning.
It is.
The real learning happens when we start putting these ideas into practice.
And I have a feeling that if we all make a conscious effort to use our words more thoughtfully,
We can create a ripple effect of positivity.
and that's something worth striving for.
Absolutely. Well, that's all the time we have for today.
Thanks for joining us.
And until next time, keep those conversations flowing and those connections strong. All right, so anyone out there want to pick up English quick? Like just the bare bones stuff.
Essentials.
Yeah. We found this YouTube video
Oh, yeah.
called 33 Most Useful English Words for Beginners.
Okay.
It's basically like a cheat sheet.
Like a crash course, kind of.
Yeah. For anyone just starting out. you know.
Right. Interesting.
And what's really cool is how they've like grouped these words.
Oh, yeah. How
I like categorization.
Yeah.
keeps things tidy.
So it's like greetings to get you by
Oh, yeah.
everyday nouns and verbs.
So it's like they're building from the ground up.
Yeah. It's like a little survival pack,
Oh, that's interesting.
but for language.
Yeah.
So
Like
we're going
Purdue.
to dive into this and see if they can really pull off this
What
promise
price is that?
that you can have like basic conversations
Oh, wow.
just from these 33 words.
Okay.
So first up, we have the basics. Greetings. We're talking hello, goodbye, good morning.
The pleasantries.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And of course, you can't forget please and thank you.
Of course not.
You got to be polite.
Oh, yeah. It's funny how
Right.
those are like universal. Like
Yeah.
no matter what language,
It transcends language.
you've got a way to be polite, to
Yeah.
acknowledge someone.
Mhm.
It's really interesting.
It's more than just the words.
It really is.
You're establishing a connection.
a rapport.
Yeah. Like a thank you can go a long way
Absolutely.
anywhere in the world.
But then the video gets into what they call survival words.
Survival words.
Yeah, I'm interested.
Like imagine you're in a new place.
Okay.
You don't speak the language.
Right.
You need help.
Okay.
So think like yes, no help.
Okay, basic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And even like, where is the bathroom?
Oh, yeah.
Essential.
Essential.
I remember being in this market in Morocco.
Oh, wow.
And it was so crowded.
Yeah.
I was completely lost.
Yeah.
And just knowing how to say, where is the bathroom
Yeah.
in like their language
Right.
was a lifesaver.
Oh, yeah. I bet.
Oh my gosh.
It's amazing how those like simple phrases
Yeah.
can suddenly feel so crucial.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
But the video doesn't stop there.
No, they keep going.
They dive into common nouns
Okay.
like food, money, time.
Hmm.
I mean, we use these all the time,
Mm-hmm.
but are they really the key
That's what I was thinking.
to unlocking deeper conversations like they're suggesting?
Yeah, because I was thinking like,
Yeah.
wouldn't it be more interesting to
Like,
start with verbs?
oh.
Like to describe actions
Okay.
or even feelings,
Yeah, that's a good point.
But I think we should give them the benefit of the doubt
Okay.
and see where they go with it.
Fair enough. Let's hear them out.
Okay.
All right.
So after nouns,
hmm
they move on to verbs.
Okay.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Eat, drink, go, come,
The action.
all the actions.
Yeah.
And what's really cool
Yeah. What's that?
is they emphasize using different tenses,
Ah.
like went versus going.
Oh, that's a good one.
Right.
Yeah.
That's something a lot of beginners trip up on.
Oh, for sure. For
Yeah.
sure. Because mastering those verb tenses
Yeah.
lets you talk about the past, present, future.
Right.
Adds a whole new dimension to how you express yourself.
It's like time travel.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
language needs more than just actions.
Okay, what else does it mean?
Needs some flavor.
Ah,
Needs some,
spice.
yeah. So that's where adjectives come in,
Right.
according to the video.
Okay.
Words like good, bad, big, small,
Mm-hmm.
all those ways to describe things.
Right.
And inject some feeling into what you're saying.
Inject some emotion.
Yes.
It is fascinating how just one adjective
Oh, yeah.
can completely change the tone of a sentence.
I like that.
Good is fine,
Okay.
but saying something is fantastic or terrible.
Ooh.
Now those words,
Now we're talking.
they pack a punch.
Yeah.
And the video really encourages viewers to explore synonyms like that,
Mhm.
to expand their vocabulary.
It's like they're saying,
What are they saying?
like, don't just tell me it's bad.
Right?
Tell me how W bad.
Exactly.
Now, I'm curious.
Ah.
What do you think about their choice of adjectives?
Okay.
Are those really the most essential ones to learn first?
That is a good question.
Yeah.
While those are certainly common,
Mm-hmm.
I wonder if prioritizing adjectives related to emotions
Okay.
might be more impactful.
Interesting.
Think about words like happy, sad, excited, scared.
Okay.
Those tap into a deeper level of communication,
Yeah.
allowing you to express how you feel
Mhm.
and connect with others on a more personal level.
Yeah, you're right. Those definitely seem more powerful
Yeah,
than big or small.
Yeah.
Let me put it that way.
for sure.
Okay. So
Okay.
we've got nouns,
Got it.
verbs,
That's
adjectives. What's missing?
what is missing.
Questions.
Ah, the question mark.
Yes.
Okay.
They're the key to unlocking information.
Right.
And, like the video suggests having deeper conversations.
Okay.
What, where, when, why, how.
hmm
Imagine trying to navigate a new city without those.
Yeah, that's a good point. I've been there.
Oh, yeah.
Not fun,
Yeah.
but it's more than just getting directions.
Right.
Those question words are
Yeah.
the starting point for learning about anything,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah,
It's how we satisfy our curiosity,
totally.
explore the world around us.
And just like with the other word categories,
Yeah.
these questions can lead to so many different conversations.
Oh, I bet.
Like just starting with where
Okay.
could lead you to discussions about travel,
Oh, yeah.
history, culture, who knows?
Right.
It's really exciting.
Very exciting.
But before we get too carried away,
Yeah.
let's take a little pause and we'll come back for part 2 of this deep dive.
Sounds good. Welcome back. Ready to go a bit deeper with this idea.
Yeah. Are 33 words really enough for real conversations?
I mean, it's a big claim,
Right.
but
But they're thinking big.
yeah.
So one thing they emphasize is like context.
Context. Okay.
Like just taking the word good
Mm-hmm.
can mean so many different things.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
It all depends on how you use it.
Right. Good could describe food,
Yeah,
a person's character,
exactly.
even the weather.
Yeah.
Like it all
You
depends.
can't just memorize definitions.
Right. You got to understand how it works,
Yeah.
how the word functions
In a sentence.
in a real life situation.
Yeah. So that's where practice comes in.
Practice. Okay.
They talk about using these words in everyday conversations.
Right.
Maybe even doing like role play.
Oh, like little scenarios?
Yeah. To get comfortable.
I like that.
I actually did that when I was learning Spanish. I
Right.
felt so silly, but it really helped.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
When you use the words in context, you
Mhm.
start to like
Yeah.
internalize the nuances
Yeah.
and you build confidence.
Get that confidence.
And it doesn't always have to be formal practice either.
Oh, that's true.
They also mention listening for these words,
Okay.
like in real conversations,
Oh, yeah.
like movies or TV shows,
Okay.
like passive learning,
Right.
but you're still absorbing the language.
That's a good point.
Right.
Yeah, we're surrounded by opportunities to learn,
We are
even when we don't realize it.
all the time.
Speaking of noticing patterns,
Yeah.
I thought it was cool how they broke down the 33 words
Oh, yeah. How so?
into those categories.
Right.
Nouns, verbs, adjectives, and so on.
It's like they're giving you a framework
Yeah.
for understanding how language works.
It's like a little toolbox.
Oh, a linguistic toolkit?
Yeah.
You got your nouns to name things, verbs to describe actions,
Yeah.
adjectives to add detail. And then once you get how those pieces fit together,
Yeah.
you can start building more complex sentences.
It's pretty clever
It is,
when you think about it.
but they don't just leave you with a toolbox.
No, they give you some tips,
Okay.
like
Oh,
for practice.
yeah.
Like using flashcards to test yourself,
Oh, yeah.
speaking out loud
Uh-huh.
to get the pronunciation down.
Those multisensory approaches are helpful
Yeah.
for language learning. When you engage like multiple senses,
Yeah.
sight, sound, even touch,
Right.
it helps solidify the information.
Okay.
And for those who like a more hands-on approach,
Yeah.
they recommend keeping a journal.
A journal.
Yeah.
How does that work with 33 words?
Well, the idea is to like
Yeah.
try to incorporate those words into your entries,
Okay.
even if it's just like a few sentences.
So you're tracking your progress,
Tracking your progress,
getting comfortable,
getting comfortable using the words,
and making it more personal.
making the learning process more personal.
That's actually a really good idea.
It is.
Yeah, you take the focus off of just memorizing,
Yeah,
and it becomes more creative.
right. And I bet seeing yourself use those words correctly
Yeah.
day after day
Yeah,
would be a huge confidence booster.
absolutely. Confidence is key
It is.
for language learning.
It's not just about knowing the words.
Yeah.
It's about feeling comfortable using them.
Right.
And that confidence comes from practice, pushing yourself outside your comfort zone and
Yeah.
embracing those mistakes.
The mistakes along the way.
Oh, yeah. I used to get so flustered
Oh, yeah.
when I would mess up a word or a phrase,
Yeah.
but now I just laugh it off
That's good.
and keep trying.
It's all part of the process.
Yeah, it's all part of the learning curve.
Every mistake is a learning opportunity.
Right?
It helps you identify where you need to improve,
Yeah.
and it gives you a chance to try again.
Try again.
So don't be afraid to experiment,
Mm-hmm.
make mistakes, and have fun with it.
But before we get too carried away
Yeah.
with all this talk of practice and confidence,
Right.
let's take a quick break
Yeah.
and come back for the final part of our deep dive.
Okay, we're back and ready for the final part of our deep dive
Right.
into these 33 essential words.
It's amazing how much we've unpacked,
Yeah.
even though it seems like a simple concept.
Yeah, when you first look at it, you're like, oh, 33 words.
Yeah.
But we've gone pretty deep.
Yeah.
Is it?
As the video points out, though, this is really just the starting point.
Yeah, it's like they've given us the basic tools.
A foundation.
Yeah. Now it's up to us to build something.
To build on that.
Yeah. And they give us some suggestions
Oh, they do.
for continuing the journey,
Yeah, like what?
like watching movies with subtitles,
Okay.
listening to music,
Yeah.
even reading books.
It's all about immersing yourself in the
Yeah.
language, finding ways to make it a part of your daily life.
Yeah.
The more you expose yourself to English, the more natural it'll become.
That's true. I remember when I was learning Spanish,
Oh, yeah.
I started watching telenovelas
Telenovelas.
with subtitles.
Yeah.
They were so cheesy, but
Oh, right.
really helped me kick up
Yeah.
everyday phrases.
Right. And slang.
Yes.
And it highlights something the video touches on.
What's that?
The importance of like paying attention
Yeah.
to how these words are used in different situations.
So it's not just about knowing the definition.
Exactly. It's about how they're used.
Yeah. Yeah. How does good change when you're talking about food
Right.
versus someone's personality?
That's a good thought exercise.
Right.
It forces you to think beyond the basic definition. Consider the nuances
Yeah.
of how a word can be used.
I like that.
Right.
Yeah. It's developing a deeper understanding
Deeper understanding.
of how language works.
Yeah. And speaking of nuances,
Okay.
I was impressed by how the video encouraged viewers to think about the emotional weight behind certain words.
Oh, yeah. Like happy and sad.
Yeah, not just happy and sad,
Yeah.
but all those shades of emotion.
Like
Was
delighted versus content.
Yeah, those convey different levels of happiness.
Right.
Exactly. And being able to express
Yeah.
those subtle differences in feeling is a key part of effective communication.
Yeah. It lets you connect
Yeah.
on a deeper level.
Don't just tell me you're happy.
Yeah.
Tell me what kind of happy you are.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that brings us back to what we talked about earlier.
What's that?
The power of language.
Oh, the power of language.
Connect us.
To connect.
To understand each other.
To build bridges.
Yes.
It is remarkable when you think about it.
It is.
These 33 words, seemingly so simple,
Yeah.
can unlock a world of communication
And connection.
and connection.
I think that's a beautiful way to wrap up
I think so too.
this deep dive
We've explored these essential words.
from every angle.
Yeah. And it's clear they're much more
Yeah.
than just a list,
More than a YouTube video.
a starting point for a lifelong journey
Ooh, I like that.
of language learning
And discovery.
and discovery.
So now we want to leave you with a thought.
Oh, a thought to ponder
Yes. What are some simple words
in your native language
that are surprisingly versatile?
or essential for communication.
We encourage you to explore those hidden depths.
The magic within the most basic vocabulary.
Thanks for joining us on this linguistic adventure.
Until next time,
Keep exploring.
the power of words. Okay, so you want to start thinking in English, right? Not just studying it, but actually thinking.
Like flipping a switch in your brain.
Exactly. And this video you send over, it's all about that.
It's about 20 minutes long.
Yeah, for intermediate and above learners.
People who are ready for that next level.
Okay, so the video jumps right into the benefits.
And I have to say, some of them surprised me.
Me too. I mean, obviously there's fluency, right?
Words just come out easier when you're not translating in your head.
But it goes deeper than that.
Way deeper.
Like the video argues that thinking in English actually improves your comprehension overall.
It's like you develop an intuition for the language.
Oh, that's good. Like you said, it really is like flipping a switch in your brain.
You're not just memorizing rules anymore.
You're actually feeling the language, the rhythm of it.
That's a great way to put it.
So how do we actually do this?
How do we flip that switch?
Well, the video has a bunch of practical tips.
The first one is surprisingly simple.
Almost too simple, I thought.
Label everything.
Like everything.
Look around you right now.
Okay, I see a lamp, a chair, my computer.
And instead of thinking of those in your native language,
You think of them in English.
lamp, chair, computer,
So basic,
that
But-
just works.
our brains are wired for association, right?
So you're constantly linking the object.
With the English word.
It strengthens that connection,
Makes it automatic.
like building mental muscle memory.
Okay, that makes sense for objects, but what about thoughts?
More complex ideas?
That's where the inner monologue comes in, I guess.
Talking to yourself in English.
Ooh, that sounds a little...
Weird.
Yeah, a little weird.
It is at first.
Our native language is just so automatic, you know?
It's the default.
But the video says that the more we catch ourselves slipping back,
And consciously choose English?
the stronger that English brain gets.
Exactly.
So it's about being mindful
Catching those thoughts as they pop up.
and reframing them in English.
The video gives some good examples.
Like what?
Imagine you're washing the dishes.
Okay, I do that a lot.
Instead of thinking, ugh, these plates are dirty, in your native language.
You could think, man, these plates need a good scrub in English.
Okay, I see.
You're narrating your life in English.
That's a cool way to think about it.
But what if you hit a word you don't know?
That happens to me all the time.
That's where a little creativity comes in.
Creativity.
Describe the word in English instead of switching back to your native language.
Oh, interesting.
So you don't know the word toaster,
Okay.
but you can think that thing that makes bread crispy,
So you stay in the English mindset.
even when your vocabulary is limited.
That's really clever, actually.
It keeps the flow going.
So we've got labeling and inner monologue.
What else could there be?
Well, the video also talks about immersion,
Surrounding yourself with the language as much as possible.
like reading English books,
Yes. And articles, websites, anything you enjoy.
listening to English music.
Podcasts, movies, the news, anything.
Okay, but doesn't that feel like work?
It shouldn't. Even if we enjoy the content, it still takes effort.
That's why choosing something you genuinely like is so important.
So you're not just forcing yourself to study.
You're actually enjoying the experience,
Makes sense.
and you're absorbing the language naturally.
But what about different types of content?
What do you mean?
Like, is reading a novel better than scrolling through social media, for example?
That's a good point. While any exposure helps,
Engaging with more complex language is key.
right, reading a novel will expose you to richer vocabulary and grammar,
Than just skimming tweets.
much richer.
So it's about quality over quantity.
Absolutely.
But even with good content, sometimes I feel like my brain just tunes out the English.
I know what you mean.
Like I'm reading the words, but they're not sinking in.
It happens.
So how do you prevent that?
The video suggests visualizing.
Visualizing, what do you mean?
As you read or listen, create a mental image of what the words mean.
Interesting.
It forces your brain to process the information more deeply.
Give me an example.
You read the word sparkling.
Sparkling.
You should picture a diamond glittering in the sunlight.
Ooh, I see. That makes it more vivid.
More memorable.
Okay, I like that tip.
So far, so good.
Yeah, but it feels like a lot, you know?
All these tips at once.
Labeling, inner monologue, immersion.
It's a lot to take in.
And to make it a daily habit, it feels overwhelming.
That's why the video says to start small.
Not try to do everything at once.
Right. Build up gradually.
So baby steps.
Pick a specific time of day
Just 5 minutes, maybe?
and commit to thinking only in English during that time.
Could be first thing in the morning.
Or on your commute to work.
Or while you're cooking dinner.
Anytime that works for you.
Set a timer and go.
Exactly.
Once that feels comfortable, you can increase the time.
Slowly but surely.
Okay, starting small, I get it.
It's about creating a sustainable routine.
Something you can stick with.
But how do you track your progress?
Yeah, how do you know if it's actually working?
The next tip is all about that.
Okay, hit me with it.
Summarize your day in English.
Out loud or in writing.
Either one works.
So it's like a mini journal,
Sort of. You're reviewing the day's events.
but you're doing it all in English.
It helps you organize your thoughts.
And see how far you've come.
It also forces you to use the language actively.
Not just passively absorbing it.
You're actually producing it.
Okay, daily summaries. Got it.
Now, for a slightly bolder approach,
Oh boy, bolder.
try thinking aloud.
Wait, what?
Talking to yourself in English?
Like full-on conversations.
Not necessarily full conversations, but
But expressing your thoughts out loud.
yes. It sounds strange,
It does.
but it's incredibly effective.
How so?
It creates a direct connection between thought and speech.
I've never thought about it like that.
In your native language, the words just flow, right?
Yeah, you don't have to think about it.
Thinking aloud in English helps build that same fluidity.
But in a safe space, of course.
Maybe not on a crowded bus.
Definitely not. But at home, when I'm alone. Okay, thinking aloud added to the list.
Now, here's a key concept from the video.
Shoot.
We often learn languages by focusing on individual words.
Vocabulary lists, grammar rules, that kind of thing.
But thinking in English is about thinking in phrases,
Phrases.
chunks of language.
So not just I want coffee.
But I'll have a coffee, please.
That makes sense.
It's more natural.
More fluent.
You're not translating word by word.
You're thinking in complete units of meaning.
Exactly.
But how do you train your brain to do that?
You already do it in your native language.
Really?
Think about everyday expressions.
Like, good morning.
Yes. Or, what are your plans for the weekend?
Instead of thinking plan and weekend separately.
You think of the whole phrase as one unit.
Oh, that's interesting. Like creating mental shortcuts.
Shortcuts for common expressions.
Makes things much smoother.
Now, what about mistakes?
Don't get me started on mistakes.
Everyone makes them.
It's so frustrating, though.
The video says to embrace them.
Embrace them.
They're part of the process.
Easy to say when you're already fluent.
But it's true. Mistakes are how we learn.
I know. It's just hard sometimes.
Each mistake is an opportunity.
An opportunity for what?
To refine your understanding.
To learn something new.
To get better.
Okay. I'll try to see it that way.
Good.
But what about real-life conversations?
How do you use all these tips when you're actually talking to someone?
That's what I'm wondering.
The video gives some examples.
Like what?
Your morning routine, commuting to work, ordering coffee.
Oh, I need help with all of those.
It shows you how to think in English in those situations.
So we can actually apply these tips in practice.
That's the goal.
Sounds good to me.
Shall we dive into those examples?
Absolutely. But first, I think we need a quick break.
Sounds good.
All right, so break time's over. Back to those real-life scenarios.
Where thinking in English really makes a difference.
Let's start with the morning routine.
Okay, you wake up.
Hit the snooze button, maybe.
But instead of thinking 5 more minutes in your native language,
You think, I'm so tired, but I gotta get up in English.
even those first groggy thoughts.
They become practice. I like it.
Now, how about something more challenging?
Ooh, like what?
Ordering coffee,
Oh, yeah. That's always stressful.
even in my native language.
Seriously. But if you're thinking in English already,
You're one step ahead.
you're not just staring at the menu, panicking.
You're thinking, okay, what am I in the mood for?
Iced coffee, latte, maybe something sweet.
You're preparing for the interaction.
It's like a pep talk in English.
And you can use those chunks we talked about.
Oh, right. The phrasing.
Instead of trying to remember each word separately,
You think, I'll have a caramel latte, please?
all as one unit.
My brain is starting to hurt just thinking about all this.
It's a lot to process.
But I'm seeing the bigger picture now.
It's about more than just vocabulary and grammar.
It's a whole different way of thinking.
New mindset.
Okay, so we got to start small, right?
One step at a time.
But how do we know if it's working?
What are some signs that our English brain is getting stronger?
Good question.
Well, do you find yourself translating less?
That would be a good sign.
What about your fluency in conversations?
Has it improved?
Do the words come more naturally?
I guess I'd have to pay attention to that.
And your listening comprehension?
Well, connected too.
Absolutely. When you're thinking in English,
It's easier to understand spoken English.
your brain is already in that mode.
Wow, this is pretty amazing stuff.
It's changing your relationship with the language,
Not just improving specific skill.
but transforming how you interact with English overall.
Oh, okay, but let's be real. This takes time, right?
It's a journey.
Not a quick fix.
The video makes that very clear.
There's no magic bullet.
It's consistent effort and practice.
What about those moments when you just feel stuck?
We all hit those walls.
Like you're not making progress.
That's where low pressure practice comes in.
Oh, yeah, we talked about that before.
Finding a language exchange partner.
Or recording yourself speaking.
Why are those so important?
Yeah, why not just jump into challenging conversations right away?
Because it's about creating a safe space
To experiment, make mistakes,
without feeling judged
so you can build confidence.
before you tackle those tougher situations.
I see. So it's like training wheels for your English brain.
Exactly. But finding a good language partner can be tricky.
Any advice on that?
Look for someone with similar goals and proficiency level
So you can learn together.
and support each other.
There are websites and apps for that, right?
Tons of them.
What about recording yourself speaking?
That's a great way to practice too.
I'm always so awkward when I hear my own voice.
It's normal to feel self-conscious.
Any tips for making it less scary?
Start with a familiar topic.
Something you're comfortable talking about.
Don't worry about being perfect.
Just focus on speaking naturally.
And then listen back and see how you did.
Identify areas for improvement.
It's a valuable learning tool,
Plus, you get used to hearing yourself speak English.
which can boost your confidence.
Okay, this is all making sense.
We've covered a lot of ground today,
From labeling our surroundings to recording ourselves speaking.
but there's one final message in the video.
A takeaway for our listeners.
A reminder that small steps lead to big results.
So even if it feels overwhelming,
Just focus on one thing at a time.
and be patient with yourself.
Consistency is key.
Don't expect to be fluent overnight,
It's a marathon, not a sprint.
but the more you practice,
The easier it will become.
until it becomes second nature.
Like flipping a switch in your brain.
We've come full circle.
So, are you ready for that final question?
Hit me with it. So what's the one thing our listeners should focus on this week? If they could only pick one strategy, what would it be?
That's tough. They're all so helpful.
I know, right? But if you had to choose,
Just one. I'd say start with the inner monologue.
really, inner monologue,
Yeah, it's like the foundation.
the basis for everything else.
Exactly. It's training your brain to think in English automatically.
Even before you open your mouth.
You're building that habit.
Okay, so listener, your challenge this week,
Pay attention to your thoughts
catch yourself thinking in your native language.
and make that switch to English.
See how it feels.
Does it get easier?
Do you notice a difference?
Let us know.
And remember, don't get discouraged.
It takes time.
Be patient.
Celebrate the small wins.
Keep that English voice going in your head.
You got this.
This has been amazing. So many great tips.
It's all about changing your mindset.
Seeing English as more than just a subject to study.
It's a language to live in,
To think in, to dream in,
to experience the world in.
and this deep dive.
It's just the beginning.
So keep practicing, keep exploring.
And most importantly, keep thinking in English.
Until next time.
Okay, picture this. You've just gotten off the plane in London. You're jet lagged, but that smell of coffee
Yeah.
is calling your name.
Oh, yeah.
You wander into this cute little cafe, but you want to order like a local, not just another tourist with a phrase book.
Right.
So that's where this deep dive comes in.
Yeah.
We've got all these articles and tips about mastering coffee shop interactions in English.
It really is amazing how these small little chats can really open up a whole new world when you're learning a language.
Absolutely.
It's not even just about the coffee, it's about connecting with the culture and feeling more confident.
So let's get into it. We have articles on vocab regional slang, even a study on the psychology of ordering. Where do we even begin?
Well, we got to start with a strong foundation, right?
Yeah.
And, we tend to forget that even basic vocabulary can tell us a lot about a culture.
Oh, that's interesting.
Like take the flat white, for example.
I've seen that on menus. But I'm always a little afraid to ask what it is.
Yeah, so basically it's a double shot of espresso with just a tiny bit of steamed milk on top. Okay.
It's super popular in Australia and New Zealand. And, that tells us a lot about their coffee culture, right? They're all about that strong espresso flavor, and there's this huge emphasis on the texture of that microphone.
So it's not just about knowing the words, it's about understanding where they come from.
Right.
That makes sense.
Like, the difference between asking for a large coffee and realizing that at Starbucks, you got to order a venti.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I've definitely been in situations where I've used the wrong word for sizes and I felt so awkward.
Right. It happens to the best of us.
Yeah,
But being aware of those little differences can help you blend in a little more.
for sure.
And while we're talking about variations, let's get into the world of modifiers.
Oh, man. Those can be tricky. I remember once I tried to order a decaf soy latte in New York. It was so busy and loud, and I ended up with something totally different.
I can imagine.
Yeah, it was a mess. That's why knowing how to use those modifiers confidently is so important. It's not even just about getting your order right, it's about feeling good expressing what you want. Imagine you're in a London coffee shop, it's freezing outside, and you're craving a soy latte extra hot. How would you order that?
Let's see. Could I please have a soy latte extra hot?
Nailed it. You sound like you've been living in London for years.
Why try?
And don't be afraid to ask questions if you're not sure about something.
Right. Like if I see a drink on the menu and I have no idea what it is, I can just ask.
Exactly. You could say, what's in a cortado?
Yeah.
And chatting with the barista helps you get your order right, but it also adds a little local flavor to the whole experience.
Okay, so we've covered the basics of vocab and modifiers. What about those phrases that really make you sound like you belong?
Oh, there are some classics that can make things go a lot smoother. Could I please have? It's always a polite and safe bet.
I tend to use it feels a bit more direct to me.
Yeah, and that's great too. It shows confidence.
Okay, cool.
So you've got your base, and then you add those modifiers on top.
Like building blocks.
Exactly. And the more you practice saying these phrases out loud, the easier it gets.
Okay, so we've got the vocab, the key phrases down. Now, how do we actually connect with the coffee shop culture, not just order and leave?
That's where the magic of small talk comes in.
I don't know. Small talk can feel a little superficial sometimes.
Yeah, I get that, but small talk serves a different purpose depending on where you are in the world. In a lot of English-speaking cultures, it's all about showing politeness, easing into a conversation.
So it's more about the social interaction than the topic itself.
Right. And you'd be surprised how much you can learn about a culture just by paying attention to the way people do small talk.
Oh, that's interesting.
Like in some cultures, talking about the weather might seem boring, but in the UK, it's practically a national sport.
Okay, so if I'm in a London coffee shop and it's raining cats and dogs outside, I could say something like, wow, this weather is wild.
Exactly. And they might say, oh, tell me about it. Typical British weather, though. See, you've just started a whole conversation.
Right.
It's amazing how a little comment like that can lead to so much. And it's not just about talking to strangers. You can use small talk with the barista, too. Just a simple, how's your day going, can make things feel more personal.
I like that. It feels more human.
Exactly. It's all about building those little connections, even if they're brief.
Right. So we've got the vocabulary, the ordering phrases, and now the art of small talk. What else do we need to know to really master the coffee shop scene?
Well, there's this whole other layer of communication that's happening beyond the words we speak.
You mean like the unspoken rules, the etiquette?
Exactly. Those unspoken rules can be tough to figure out, especially in a new culture.
Yeah, for sure. Like personal space, I've definitely been in some crowded coffee shops where I felt like I was on top of the person next to me.
Oh yeah, personal space is a big one, and it's different everywhere. But in a lot of English-speaking countries, it's polite to give people some breathing room.
So if I'm at a table, I shouldn't spread out all my stuff like I own the place.
Good rule of thumb. And if you're waiting in line, try not to crowd the person in front of you.
Right. It's all about being considerate, even when it's busy.
Exactly. What about noise level? I've noticed some coffee shops are super loud and others are really quiet.
Yeah. How do you know what the vibe is? I don't want to be that person yelling on my phone in a silent cafe.
It's all about looking around, you know? Pay attention to how loud people are talking and adjust your volume accordingly.
And if I need to take a call, I should probably step outside.
Right. Just be respectful of everyone around you. Now, speaking of sharing space, let's talk about working or studying in a coffee shop.
Oh, yeah, that's a big one. Coffee shops are like a second office for a lot of people.
Totally. But there are definitely some unspoken rules there.
Like, if you're going to be there for a while, you should probably buy more than just one coffee.
Right. You don't want to hog a table all day and only spend a couple of dollars.
Makes sense. What about laptops and stuff?
Yeah, be mindful of the volume on your devices. You know, nobody wants to hear your music or your keyboard clicking away.
And if it's crowded, try to keep your stuff contained.
Exactly. Sharing is caring. Actually, one of our sources mentions a study about how noise affects productivity.
Oh, really? That's interesting.
Yeah, so basically they found that certain kinds of noise, like loud conversations or sudden sounds, can be super distracting.
Okay.
But consistent, quiet background noise, like the coffee machine or soft music, can actually help people focus.
That's probably why you get so much work done in coffee shops.
Right. It's that perfect balance.
Okay, so we've talked about the spoken and the unspoken rules of coffee shop interactions, from how to order to cultural nuances and even workspace etiquette. But I'm curious, how does this all go beyond just getting a cup of coffee? How does it connect to language learning and feeling more comfortable in a new culture?
That's a great question. And honestly, it's something we forget about a lot. We get so focused on learning vocab and grammar that we forget why we're doing it in the first place. Language is about connecting with people and experiencing the world in a different way.
You know, you're right. I've had times where I've messed up words or pronounced things wrong, but the person I was talking to was so nice about it. It wasn't about being perfect. It was about the connection.
Exactly. Those are the moments that make language learning come alive. You realize it's about the human interaction, the shared moments, not just about getting the words right.
So how do we encourage our listeners to really embrace those moments, to get out of their comfort zone and really experience the culture?
I think it starts with a change in mindset. Instead of seeing language learning as something you have to do, see it as an adventure.
I love that.
A way to explore new places, connect with different people.
It's rating in your textbook for a plane ticket.
Exactly. And coffee shops are the perfect place to start these adventures.
Yeah.
They're like these little mini cultures where you can observe, interact, and practice your language skills in a safe space.
So don't just grab your coffee and go. Take a moment to really be there.
Right. Listen to the conversations happening around you. Notice how people are interacting.
Yeah, it's like a mini ethnography project.
Exactly. And if you feel up to it, don't be afraid to start a conversation with someone.
Yeah.
It could be the barista, someone at another table, even the person in line behind you.
You never know what you might learn.
And even if it's just a quick chat, it's still a chance to practice your skills and connect with someone from a different background.
It's amazing how these little interactions can be so meaningful.
Right. Like each conversation is a window into another world.
So we've talked about the spoken and unspoken rules of coffee shop interactions, the importance of small talk, and how these everyday encounters can help us understand language and culture better. What else can we give our listeners to help them navigate all this with confidence?
I think it's important to address the fear of making mistakes. You know, a lot of people are afraid to speak up because they think they'll say the wrong thing.
Oh yeah, I've definitely been there. I totally chickened out of speaking because I was scared of messing up.
It happens. But remember, making mistakes is part of learning.
Like learning to ride a bike. You're going to fall a few times before you get it.
Exactly. Same goes for language. Embrace those awkward moments. Those times when you feel like you're fumbling over your words. It's all part of the journey.
And a lot of times people are more understanding than we think.
Totally. Most people appreciate when you try to speak their language. They're not going to focus on every little grammar mistake.
So instead of getting down on yourself for making mistakes, see them as opportunities to learn and grow.
Exactly. Each mistake is a chance to get better and build your confidence.
And sometimes those mistakes lead to the best stories.
Absolutely. Some of my favorite language learning memories are those times when I totally messed up or misunderstood something. They're the stories that make you laugh and teach you something new about the culture.
So to everyone listening, embrace the mistakes, laugh at the awkward moments, and celebrate the small wins.
Because the journey of language learning is just as important as the destination. And hey, you might even discover a hidden talent for comedy along the way.
Speaking of discoveries, one of our sources talks about the psychological benefits of getting out of your comfort zone.
That sounds interesting. Tell me more.
So the article says that challenging yourself to do things that make you a little uncomfortable can actually make you more confident and resilient.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's like working out a muscle. The more you use it, the stronger it gets.
Exactly. And when you apply that to language learning, it means that the more you push yourself to speak, to start conversations, to try new things, the more confident you become.
And that confidence can spread to other parts of your life, too.
It's a ripple effect.
Exactly.
It's amazing how something as simple as ordering a coffee can be so powerful.
Really is. Those little interactions can change the way we see ourselves and the way we connect with the world.
So next time you're in a coffee shop, remember you're not just getting a drink, you're starting an adventure.
Embrace the unknown, challenge yourself, and enjoy the experience. You might be surprised by what you find.
Well, we've covered a lot of ground today.
We have.
From basic vocabulary and cultural differences to the art of small talk and the power of making mistakes.
It's been a good one.
I'm feeling pretty energized now, ready to conquer any coffee shop in the world.
That's the spirit.
Yeah.
And remember, we've just scratched the surface here.
Yeah.
There's so much more to explore, to learn, and to experience.
So to everyone listening, keep practicing, keep trying new things, and keep those coffee cups full.
Yes.
Because the world is out there waiting to be discovered, one conversation at a time.
Beautifully said.
And maybe with a delicious latte in hand.
Always. It's funny, you know, because there's this whole other level of communication happening in coffee shops.
Oh, yeah.
It goes beyond just the words.
You mean like the unspoken rules, all that etiquette stuff?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And those unspoken rules can be a little tricky to navigate, especially in a new culture.
Well, one that comes to mind is personal space.
Mm.
You know, I've been in those packed coffee shops where you're practically sitting on a stranger's lap.
Oh yeah, personal space is a big one for sure. It's different everywhere. But in a lot of English-speaking countries, people like to have a bit of breathing room.
So if I'm at a table, I shouldn't be spreading out all my stuff like I own the place.
Exactly. And if you're waiting in line, don't be breathing down someone's neck. You know, just be mindful of the person in front of you.
Right. It's about being considerate of others,
Yeah,
even when it's super busy.
absolutely. What about noise level? Have you noticed how some coffee shops are really loud and others are like super quiet?
Oh, yeah, for sure. It's tricky sometimes. You know, you don't want to be that person talking really loudly on their phone when everyone else is whispering.
Right. It's all about reading the room, you know, observe the vibe and adjust accordingly.
So if people are whispering, I should keep my voice down too.
Exactly. And if there's a lot of chatter, then you can relax a bit more.
And if I need to take a phone call, I should probably step outside or find a quieter spot.
Exactly. Just be mindful of the shared space and the people around you. Now, speaking of shared space, let's talk about working or studying in a coffee shop.
Oh, this is a big one. It seems like coffee shops have become like a second office for a lot of people these days.
They really have, but there are definitely some etiquette rules to keep in mind.
Like if you're planning to camp out there for a while, you should probably buy more than just a single coffee.
Yeah, it's kind of a courtesy, you know?
Right.
You don't want to take up a table for hours and only spend a couple of dollars.
Right. What about using laptops and stuff?
Be mindful of the volume on your devices. No one wants to hear your music blasting or your keyboard clicking nonstop.
And if it's crowded, try to be space conscious.
Hmm.
Don't spread out all your belongings and take up the whole table.
Exactly. It's all about being considerate and sharing the space. Actually, one of our sources mentions a study about the impact of noise on productivity.
Oh, really? Tell me more.
Yeah, so apparently certain types of noise, like really loud conversations or sudden bursts of sound, can be super distracting.
Okay.
But consistent low-level background noise, like the sound of the coffee machine or soft music, can actually help people focus and be more creative.
That makes sense. I feel like I get some of my best work done in busy coffee shops.
Right, it's that perfect balance of energy and ambient noise.
So we've covered the spoken rules and the unspoken rules of coffee shop interactions, from ordering phrases to cultural nuances and even workspace etiquette. But I'm curious, how does this all go beyond just getting a coffee? How does it connect to the bigger picture of language learning and cultural immersion?
That's a great question. And it's something we often overlook. We get so caught up in memorizing vocabulary and grammar rules that we forget the real reason we're learning a language.
What do you mean?
It's about connecting with people and experiencing the world in a new way.
Yeah, I've definitely had those moments where I've stumbled over words or mispronounced things, but the person I was talking to was so patient and understanding. And in those moments, it wasn't about being perfect, it was about the connection.
Exactly. Those are the moments that make language learning come alive. It's not just about the words, it's about the human interaction, the shared laughter, the cultural exchange.
So how can we encourage our listeners to embrace those moments, to step out of their comfort zones and really dive into the cultural experience?
I think it starts with a shift in mindset. Instead of seeing language learning as a chore or a test to pass, see it as an adventure.
I love that.
A way to explore new worlds, connect with different people, expand your horizons.
Like trading in your textbook for a passport.
Exactly. And coffee shops can be the perfect starting point for those adventures. They're like these microcosms of culture where you can observe, interact, and practice your language skills in a safe and welcoming environment.
So instead of just grabbing a coffee to go take a moment to really be there.
Right. Listen to the conversations happening around you. Notice those subtle cues of body language and social interaction.
Like turning your coffee break into a little research project.
Exactly. And if you feel comfortable, don't be afraid to strike up a conversation with someone.
Yeah.
It could be the barista, someone at another table, or even the person standing in line behind you.
You never know what interesting stories you might hear or what you might learn.
And even if it's just a quick chat, it's still a valuable opportunity to practice your language skills and connect with someone from a different culture.
It's amazing how these seemingly insignificant interactions can actually be so enriching.
It's like each conversation is a window into another world.
So we've talked about the spoken and unspoken rules of coffee shop interactions, the importance of small talk, and how these everyday encounters can deepen our understanding of language and culture.
Yeah.
What else can we offer our listeners to help them navigate this world with confidence?
It's funny. We always talk about fluency, like it's this big goal, like reaching the top of a mountain.
Yeah.
But maybe it's more about enjoying the climb itself.
I think you're absolutely right. It's
Yeah.
about those little moments of connection,
Yeah.
Those times when you finally get that pronunciation right, or when you have your first real conversation with someone.
It's those moments that make all the hard work worth it. I remember when I was learning Spanish, I was so focused on all the grammar rules and verb tenses.
Right. That I forgot to just enjoy speaking the language.
It's easy to get caught up in the technical stuff, especially when you're first starting out, but we got to remember that language is really all about communication and connecting with people.
I had this experience once in this tiny little cafe in Barcelona.
Oh, yeah?
I was trying to order a café con leche, and I totally butchered the
Yeah,
pronunciation.
I bet the barista still knew what you meant, though.
Oh, they did. And they even gave me this little smile and said, "Muy bien." It was such a small thing, but it made me feel so good.
It's those little gestures that make all the difference. They remind us that we're all human. We all make mistakes,
Yeah.
and we're all just trying our best.
It's like this universal language of kindness that goes beyond any grammar mistakes. It's that feeling of, hey, we're both putting in the effort, and that's what matters.
Exactly. And those moments often lead to the most genuine connections.
It makes me think about all the times I've been afraid to speak up in a new language. I've been so worried about sounding silly. But then I remember those encouraging smiles, those patient people, and it gives me the courage to try again.
It really is like building a muscle. The more you use it, the stronger it gets. And that goes for confidence, too. Each time you push yourself to speak, to try something new, You're building that confidence muscle.
And those small wins, they add up over time.
They do.
And you start to feel more self-assured, not just in language learning, but in other areas of your life too.
Absolutely. It's like this ripple effect. You realize you can handle new and unfamiliar situations. It's about embracing the unknown and trusting yourself to figure it out.
And what better place to practice those skills than in a coffee shop, right?
Seriously.
Surrounded by all that energy, all those conversations.
It's the perfect environment to observe, to experiment, to just enjoy the process of learning and growing.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into coffee shop confidence, let's leave our listeners with one final thought.
Okay.
It's not about speaking perfectly. It's about enjoying the journey. It's about those small moments of connection, those awkward stumbles, those unexpected discoveries. It's about trying new things and being okay with being a beginner again.
Well said.
And who knows? You might just find that the best part of the whole journey is the coffee itself.
To stronger coffee and even stronger conversations.
Cheers to that. And to all our listeners out there, keep practicing, keep exploring, and keep those coffee cups full, because the world is waiting to be discovered one conversation at a time.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Hey everyone, and welcome to another deep dive, this time into the world of American versus British English.
Ooh, that's a good one.
Yeah, and we're going to go beyond just the basic, the stereotypical stuff that you always hear about.
Right.
And really kind of dig into like the subtle, the sneaky little differences that even trip up like advanced English speakers.
I know, because I'm one of them.
Yeah, like even, people who are like, very, very fluent in both, but there's still some little things that are like, oh, wait a minute.
Yeah.
So we've got 15 words and phrases
Okay.
to guide you through these sort of tricky transatlantic conversations. And trust me, you will be surprised by some of these
I'm
things.
ready to be surprised.
Okay, good. So what I think is interesting is that it's not just like vocabulary swaps. It's like it kind of gives you a peek into the history and the culture and even the humor of both countries.
Absolutely. Yeah. They really do reflect those deep cultural differences and sometimes even values.
Yeah, like almost like a window into like
Yeah.
a different mindset.
Exactly.
So let's jump right in with our first word. It's one that's kind of been popping up a lot lately in both American and British English, but with a slightly different vibe. And that word is
Bespoke.
bespoke.
Yeah. You've probably seen it like in marketing materials and stuff, but how does it actually differ across the pond?
Well, in both American and British English, it basically means the same thing, which is custom made, made for a particular customer.
Right.
But in the US, at least, it still kind of has that connotation of something really exclusive associated with like luxury goods and services.
So like a bespoke suit or like
Yes, a bespoke car.
right, like a Rolls Royce or something?
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah. So it still signals like luxury prestige and really that attention to detail.
It's like it's become a marketing word almost.
It has.
Yeah.
It has. And it's becoming more common,
Right.
but it
Yeah.
still has that sense of like, this is special.
Yeah. This is not just off the rack. This is something really unique. Whereas in British English, it's much more commonplace.
Interesting.
You can use it for anything that's customized, whether it's a wedding dress,
Right.
kitchen cabinets, you name it. Our source even gives the example. She ordered a bespoke wedding dress from a designer in London.
Wow. Yeah. So it doesn't have that luxury kind of vibe to it.
Not so much. It's just like, I had this made for me.
Yeah.
Just for me.
Interesting. Okay. So the same word can have these subtle like shades of meaning depending on, where you are in the world.
Yeah.
Which is kind of cool. I like that.
It's fascinating, and it makes you realize how much context matters when you're communicating.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, let's shift gears a little bit to a word that I think often trips people up. And this is like the classic queue versus line dilemma.
Ah, yes, the great transatlantic queue debate.
Right.
One of those fundamental differences that just seems so simple, but they reveal so much about those cultural perspectives.
Right.
So in the US, you stand in line, which to me kind of implies a more individualistic approach, like everyone's just focused on their own thing,
Right.
getting it done. Whereas in the UK, you queue,
Right.
and that suggests orderliness,
Right.
shared social etiquette. Like, we're all in this together. We're all going to wait patiently for our turn.
And it's almost like a cultural institution in Britain, the concept of queuing.
Absolutely. It is. It's deeply ingrained in British society. You queue at the bus stop, you queue at the grocery store,
Right.
you even queue at the pub.
Yeah, you better queue up.
Yeah, and there's an unspoken understanding that you wait your turn. It's just part of their social fabric.
Yeah, and it makes you wonder, is that reflected in other aspects of British life? Is
Oh, yeah.
that whole like sense of order and politeness and
Oh, for sure.
yeah, yeah, very interesting. Okay, let's move on to a word that describes a feeling we all know too well, but express it differently. Utter exhaustion. So in American English, we might say exhausted, but our British friends have a wonderfully evocative word for this, and that word is knackered.
Knackered. Knackered. Oh, yeah. I love that word.
It's a good one, isn't it?
It is. It's so descriptive. It goes beyond just being tired.
Yeah.
It really conveys that sense of being completely drained, worn out.
Right, like you've just hit a wall.
You've hit a wall, you're done. Yeah. And while Americans might use exhausted in a similar way, knackered has this playfulness to it. Like
Right.
almost like they're poking fun at their own fatigue,
Right.
you know, which is very British.
Yeah, it's a good one. And our source uses the example, I'm absolutely knackered after working a double shift,
Oh, yeah.
which I think perfectly captures that.
It does.
But I'm curious, do you think that playful tone is like a way of downplaying the severity of it?
Possibly. Yeah. It could be like a coping mechanism.
Right.
Like make light of a difficult situation, which, as we've said, is very British.
Yeah, very British for sure. Okay, ready for our next word?
Hit me.
Okay, so this is a word that is a bit of a chameleon. It changes its meaning depending on which side of the pond you're on, and that word is fancy. Fancy, yeah, so in American English, fancy typically means, something elaborate
Right.
or upscale, like a fancy dinner or a fancy hotel.
Fancy restaurant. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But in British English, it takes on a whole other meaning.
It does. It has like a secret double life.
Right.
It means to want or to like something. So you might ask a British friend, do you fancy a cuppa?
Do you fancy a cuppa?
Which means, would you like a cup of tea?
Right.
So simple question, but a very different meaning.
Yeah, I'd say yes to that any day of the week.
Exactly.
A cuppa. Okay, on to our next word, another one that showcases the British love for expressive language. This one is chuffed.
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 Love it.
It's a good one.
Yep.
A good one.
Yep.
It expresses a feeling of great delight or satisfaction.
Yeah, it goes beyond just being pleased.
Right.
It's like absolutely thrilled over the moon, delighted.
So it's like pleased on steroids.
You could say that, yes, if your British friend says, I'm chuffed to bits about your new job, they're not just happy for you, they're ecstatic.
Yeah, they're like really, really happy for you.
Really, really happy.
Yeah. It's like,
Yeah.
I love that it's such a specific word,
It is.
for that very specific emotion.
Yeah, it
Yeah,
captures that feeling of pure joy.
Yeah. Okay, let's talk a little bit about some seasonal vocabulary. When those leaves start changing color, and Americans call it fall.
Our British friends call it autumn.
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 Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've always found it interesting how those different words evoke different images in my mind.
Right.
Fall feels more crisp
Yeah.
and dynamic, like the leaves are like actively falling.
Yeah.
Whereas autumn has a more mellow, kind of wistful feel to it.
More romantic, maybe.
Yeah. It's really interesting how these subtle differences in wording
Yeah.
can like shape our perceptions of the world around us.
Absolutely. It really highlights how language can influence our thoughts and even our emotions.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, let's explore how Americans and Brits measure time.
Okay.
What do you got for me on this one?
Well, this is a fun one. In British English, they use the word fortnight to denote 2 weeks.
A fortnight.
Yeah. Whereas Americans would simply say 2 weeks.
Right.
Fortnight sounds a little old-fashioned.
Yeah, it does a little bit more literary almost.
Right.
Or historical,
Yeah.
but it's still quite common in British English.
I kind of like it.
Yeah, it's got a charm to it.
Yeah, like a little nod to a bygone era.
Absolutely.
It's cool. Okay. Let's talk about another area where we see these transatlantic differences, and that is taking a break from work or school.
Okay.
So, Americans go on vacation.
The British go on holiday.
Holiday, right? Same concept, different word. But it's interesting, this distinction kind of highlights how language evolves. Both words, vacation and holiday, have Latin roots.
Right.
But they've kind of taken on slightly different meanings over time.
They've each gone on their own little linguistic journey,
Yeah.
reflecting the cultural nuances of their respective countries.
Right. Like the evolution of language.
Exactly. Okay, now we're going to step into a potential minefield of misunderstanding. This is all about wardrobe essentials. What Americans call pants.
So the British call trousers.
Trousers. But here's where things get really interesting.
Yes.
In British English, pants typically refer to underwear.
Underwear.
So a simple statement like, I need new pants.
Could lead to some very awkward situations.
Oh my God.
If you're talking to someone from the UK.
Like, so you're in London, you're like, I need some new pants. And they're like,
You're looking at you like, whoa.
oh.
Yeah. You want to buy new underwear right now?
Right.
So be careful with that one.
Be very, very careful.
Stick with trousers if you want to avoid any awkwardness.
Okay, trousers. Got it. Got it. Speaking of potentially embarrassing mix-ups, our next word is one that I think Americans need to be extra careful with, and that word is rubber.
Rubber.
Now, in British English, this is a simple word. It means an eraser. You know, that thing you use to rub out pencil marks?
Right.
But in American English, rubber has a completely different meaning.
Yeah.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does.
Yeah.
And it's not something we're going to discuss on this show, but
We'll let your imagination run wild.
yeah.
But suffice it to say, it's best to stick with eraser to avoid any red faces.
Yes, stick with eraser.
Stick with eraser.
Americans, be very, very careful.
Yes.
Our source really emphasizes this. They're like, warning.
Yeah.
Okay, shifting gears a little bit to places of healing, what we call in American English. A doctor's office in British English is often called a surgery.
A surgery?
A surgery. But here's where things can get a little tricky.
They can.
Because in British English, surgery can also refer to the consultation hours at a doctor's office. So you might hear someone say, I'm going to the surgery at 9 a.m. for a checkup.
Right.
And that doesn't necessarily mean they're having a medical procedure.
No, it just means they're going to see their doctor.
Right?
During their consultation time.
Got it.
So again, context is everything.
Yeah.
When it comes to language.
Right. Very, very true. Okay, let's move on to a mode of transportation that helps us conquer those tall buildings. Americans take the elevator.
The British hop in the lift.
The lift, two different words, same vertical journey.
Exactly.
And, you know, this difference, I think, goes way back to the early days of these contraptions. You know, elevator, with its emphasis on lifting, kind of reflects that American focus on functionality.
Yeah.
Whereas lift, with the more simpler, elegant sound, might reflect a British appreciation for understated design.
It's a fascinating thought, isn't it?
It is like the words themselves.
Yeah.
Kind of give you a clue.
They do.
Okay, ready for another housing showdown?
I am.
Okay, in American English, we live in apartments.
Our British counterparts reside in flats.
The flat. So both words paint a picture of, like, you know, a self-contained living space within a larger building.
Right, yeah.
But they do conjure up kind of different images.
They do, don't they?
Like apartment to me feels more modern and spacious.
Modern, spacious, maybe even a little bit luxurious.
Right.
Whereas a flat feels cozier, more intimate.
Right.
Maybe even a little bit quirky.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah.
So apartment might be like a sleek high-rise.
Exactly.
And a flat might be like, you know, charming,
Yeah.
older building with character.
A little more character, yeah.
Yeah. It's amazing how these words can carry such nuanced cultural baggage.
They do. It's fascinating.
It is. Okay, speaking of nuanced cultural baggage, let's talk about entertainment.
Okay.
So Americans go to the cinema to watch a movie.
In British English, they go to the cinema to see a film.
A film.
2 words.
Same cinematic experience, but again, they reflect a little bit of a different perspective.
Right.
Like movie emphasizes movement, action. The spectacle of it all.
The entertainment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whereas film kind of highlights the artistry, the craft.
The medium itself.
Yeah. Like movie is more about the entertainment value.
Right.
And film is more like it's elevated to an art form.
Exactly. And that distinction really speaks volumes about how Americans and Brits approach cinema in general.
It really does. It's really interesting. Okay, last but not least, let's talk about food.
Okay.
You know, when we're craving that restaurant meal,
Yeah.
but we don't feel like dining in,
Right.
Americans order takeout,
The British go for takeaway.
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 And here's where things can get a little tricky again, because in British English, takeaway can refer to both the food itself and the restaurant that provides it.
Yes.
So you might hear someone say, let's get Indian takeaway. And that could mean either ordering food or going to an Indian takeaway restaurant.
Exactly.
So again,
Context.
context is everything. You got to pay attention
Absolutely.
to those subtle cues in British English to make sure you're on the same page.
Right.
Well, we've covered a lot of ground in this first part of our deep dive, from bespoke suits to knackered Brits. We've explored some really interesting differences between American and British English, uncovering these hidden layers of history, culture, and humor along the way. And I think it's been fascinating to see how those differences can sometimes lead to miscommunication
Absolutely.
or at least a little bit of confusion, but it also makes the learning process all the more interesting.
You've done an excellent job of not just identifying these differences, but also analyzing what they reveal about the two cultures.
Well, I've had a wonderful guide, but we're not done yet.
No, we are not.
There are still more linguistic gems to uncover.
Yes.
So buckle up. Get ready for part 2, where we delve into even more fascinating distinctions, including some surprising transatlantic twists on everyday words and phrases.
It'd be good.
It's going to be good.
You won't want to miss it.
Stay tuned. Welcome back to our deep dive into the wonderfully quirky world of American versus British English.
And I think you'll find these next few examples particularly intriguing.
Good.
We're going to delve into some everyday words and phrases that take on surprisingly different meanings across the Atlantic.
Okay, hit me with those linguistic curveballs.
Yeah.
What's first on our list?
Let's start with something we all do every day walk in American English. We use the sidewalk to get from point A to point B.
But in British English, they stroll along the pavement.
Same concrete path, different terminology.
Right.
And this seemingly simple distinction actually reveals a lot about cultural perspectives in the U.S. The emphasis is on the side as if it's an addition to the road, almost an afterthought.
Right.
But in the UK, the pavement is the main focus, the designated space for pedestrians.
That's a really interesting observation. It makes you wonder if that difference in terminology reflects a broader difference in how pedestrians are viewed or treated in both countries.
It's definitely something to ponder. Okay, let's move on to something that's near and dear to all of us, food, specifically those sweet treats that bring us joy in American English. We indulge in cookies.
While our British friends savor biscuits.
Now, this is where things can get a bit tricky because what Americans call biscuits are more like what the British would call scones.
Oh, right. Yeah.
It's a classic case of a transatlantic word swap.
And a potentially confusing one. Especially if you're craving a chewy chocolate chip cookie and end up with a crumbly, buttery scone. Instead, talk about a culinary disappointment.
I know, right? A total letdown. Speaking of potential disappointments, let's move on to another food-related distinction that often causes confusion snacks when we're feeling peckish and want a quick bite. Americans reach for chips.
While the British opt for crisps.
And to make things even more interesting, what Americans call French fries, the British call chips.
So it's a total chip swap.
It is, and one that can lead to some amusing misunderstandings, especially when ordering food at a restaurant.
Right. Imagine asking for chips in London, expecting a side of fries, only to be served a bag of what you'd call potato chips.
Exactly, or vice versa.
Oh, man.
It's a good reminder that even seemingly simple words can have very different meanings depending on where you are in the world.
Yeah, for sure. All right, let's shift gears and talk about something a bit more practical transportation in American English. We fill up our cars with gas.
While in British English, they top up with petrol.
Same fuel, different terminology.
And this distinction is particularly important if you're ever driving in a foreign country and need to find a petrol station.
Right.
You don't want to end up stranded with an empty tank because you used the wrong word.
That would not be good.
No, not at all. Speaking of transportation, let's talk about those iconic red buses that grace the streets of London. In American English, we'd simply call them buses.
But in British English, they're often referred to as coaches.
Now, this is where things can get a bit confusing because in American English, a coach typically refers to a long-distance bus or a private bus used for tours or sporting events.
Right. Like a tour bus.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So if you're in London and someone tells you to catch the coach, they're probably not talking about a luxury tour bus.
Right.
They simply mean to hop on the regular city bus.
Got it. It's all about context.
It is, and it's a reminder that even seemingly straightforward words can have multiple meanings depending on the region and situation.
Okay, let's move on to a topic that's near and dear to my heart. Books. When we finish reading a book, Americans typically return it to the library.
While in British English, they take it back to the library.
It's a subtle difference, but I find it fascinating because it highlights how even simple verbs can vary across regions.
And those subtle variations can sometimes reveal underlying cultural nuances. For instance, the American emphasis on returning might suggest a sense of ownership as if the book is being given back to its rightful place.
Right.
Whereas the British use of taking back might imply a more transactional approach as if the book is simply being returned to its point of origin.
Like almost like we borrowed it and now we're taking it back.
Exactly. It's like those different verbs offer a glimpse into the unspoken rules and expectations surrounding books and libraries in both cultures.
That's really thought-provoking.
Yeah.
Okay, let's wrap up this segment with a distinction that's particularly relevant in today's digital age. When we want to find information online, Americans typically use Google to search.
While in British English, they often use Google to look something up.
Again, it's a subtle difference, but it reflects how language adapts to new technologies and cultural practices. Search feels more active and directed, like you're on a mission to find specific information.
Right.
While look something up feels more casual, like you're simply browsing for information or clarifying something you're curious about.
And that distinction might reflect a broader cultural difference in how Americans and Brits approach information gathering. It's fascinating food for thought.
It really is. Well, we've certainly covered a lot of ground in this segment, from sidewalks and cookies to petrol and coaches. We've explored a wide range of American versus British English variations, uncovering hidden layers of cultural meaning and potential pitfalls for the unsuspecting traveler or language enthusiast.
You've done a fantastic job of not only highlighting these differences, but also prompting us to think critically about what they reveal about the two cultures and how they influence our communication.
Well, having you as my expert guide has made this journey both insightful and enjoyable. But our linguistic adventure isn't over yet, is it?
Not quite. We still have more fascinating distinctions to uncover in the final part of our deep dive.
Okay, I'm ready. Bring on part 3.
Get ready for some even more intriguing and potentially confusing transatlantic twists on everyday words and phrases. Stay tuned.
All right, welcome back to the final part of our deep dive into American versus British English.
I feel like we've uncovered so many linguistic surprises already,
We have.
but I have a feeling there are still more gems waiting to be discovered.
I think so too. So are you ready to wrap up this transatlantic adventure with a bang?
Absolutely. We've explored some fascinating vocabulary variations.
Yep.
But now let's delve into a few more examples that highlight those subtle but significant ways in which American and British English diverge, even in the simplest of actions.
Okay, bring it on. What linguistic mysteries are we unraveling in this final segment?
Well, let's start with something we all do when the temperature drops: bundle up.
Right.
In American English, we put on a sweater when we need an extra layer of warmth.
But in British English, they do in a jumper.
Jumper, same cozy garment, different name.
Right. And that difference in terminology might actually reflect a subtle difference in cultural attitudes toward clothing.
Possibly.
Like sweater emphasizes the practical purpose of the garment, keeping you warm when you sweat.
Right.
But jumper has a more playful, almost whimsical feel to it.
Yeah, like it's meant to make you feel light and bouncy.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
I love that observation. It's amazing how even something as simple as a name for a piece of clothing can reveal these subtle cultural nuances.
It is fascinating, isn't it?
It is. Okay, let's move on to something that's sure to spark some friendly rivalry. The beloved game of soccer.
Oh, yes.
In American English, we call it soccer.
While our friends across the pond simply refer to it as football.
Football. Now, this is a classic example of a transatlantic word swap
It is.
that often leads to some good-natured teasing.
Absolutely. Especially during major sporting events like the World Cup.
Oh, yeah. I can just imagine the banter back and forth.
Oh, yeah.
You call it soccer, we call it football, but we all know who the real fans are.
Exactly. But at the end of the day, we're all united by our love of the game no matter what we call it.
Right.
It's a reminder that even when our words differ, we can still find common ground through shared passion.
Right. Very true. Okay, speaking of common ground, let's tackle another difference that often trips people up: how we talk about time.
Okay.
So in American English, we might say, I have class this afternoon.
While a British person might say, I have class this evening.
And this is where things can get a little tricky, because afternoon and evening don't always have the same boundaries in both varieties of English.
Right.
In general, Americans tend to use afternoon for a broader period of time, extending later into the day than what British English speakers might consider afternoon.
So it's almost like the American afternoon stretches further into the evening hours.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
And that can definitely lead to confusion if you're trying to schedule something with someone from the UK.
Definitely always best to clarify to avoid any scheduling mishaps.
Right. A good point. Okay, and speaking of potential mishaps, let's delve into the world of higher education, another area where American and British English use different terms for the same concept. So in American English, we attend college after high school.
While in British English, they go to university.
University, same concept, different terminology.
And this distinction can be important when navigating academic conversations or applying to institutions in different countries.
Right.
Imagine telling a British professor that you're applying to college when they're expecting you to say university.
Oops. Yeah, that could be a little awkward.
A little bit, yeah. So it's all about using the right lingo to fit in and avoid those awkward moments.
Right. Very true. Okay, ready for our final linguistic showdown?
I believe so.
All right. Let's explore how Americans and Brits express that feeling of being overwhelmed with work or commitments.
Okay.
In American English, we might say, I'm slammed.
Well, a British person might say, I'm snowed under.
Snowed under, both expressions convey that sense of being buried under a heavy workload. But they use different imagery to paint that picture.
They do.
I'm slammed. Kind of evokes a sense of sudden impact.
Yeah, like you've been hit with a ton of bricks all at once.
Right, exactly. Whereas snowed under suggests a more gradual accumulation, like you're slowly being buried beneath a growing pile of tasks.
And those subtle differences in imagery can actually reveal a lot about how Americans and Brits approach work and stress.
That's an interesting thought.
It is fascinating how even the simplest of phrases can offer a glimpse into those deeper cultural patterns.
It really is why we've really gone deep on this
Yeah,
journey.
we have.
From sweaters and football to afternoons and universities, we've explored so many fascinating nuances of American versus British English, uncovering these hidden layers of history, culture, and even psychology along the way.
I think it's been a truly enriching exploration.
I agree. I feel like I've gained a whole new level of understanding and appreciation for these two varieties of English.
Me too. It's been fascinating to see how language is more than just a tool for communication. It's a reflection of our cultural values, our historical experiences, and even our individual perspectives on the world.
It really is, and that's what makes the study of language so endlessly fascinating.
Absolutely.
There's always more to discover, more to learn, and more to appreciate.
Always.
So I hope our listeners have enjoyed this deep dive into the wonderfully weird world of American versus British English as much as we have.
I'm sure they have. And remember, the journey of linguistic discovery doesn't end here. Keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep celebrating the diversity and richness of language in all its forms.
That's great advice. Thanks for joining me on this deep dive.
It's been a pleasure.